اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ياسين والقرآن الحكيم، إنك لمن المرسلين على صراط مستقيم، تنزيل العزيز الرحيم، لتنذر قوما ما أنذر آباؤهم فهم غافلون. لقد حق القول على أكثرهم فهم لا يؤمنون. إنا جعلنا في أعناقهم أغلالا فهي إلى الأذقان فهم مقمحون. وجعلنا من بين أيديهم سدا ومن خلفهم سدا فأغشيناهم فهم لا يبصرون. وسواء عليهم أنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون. إنما تنذر من اتبع الذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب فبشره بمغفرة وأجر كريم. إنا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين. وضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاءها المرسلون إذ أرسلنا إليهم اثنين فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون. قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون. قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين. قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب أليم. قالوا طائركم معكم أئن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون. وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجل يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم مهتدون. وما لي لا أعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون. أتخذ من دونه آلهة إن يردني الرحمن بضر لا تغني عني شفاعتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون. إني ذل في ضلال مبين. إني آمنت بربكم فاسمعون. قيل ادخل الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون بما غفر لي ربي وجعلني من المكرمين. وما أنزلنا على قومه من بعده من جند من السماء وما كنا منزلين. إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون. يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون. ألم يروا كما أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون. وإن كل لما جميع لدينا محضرون. وآية لهم الأرض الميتة أحييناها وأخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون. وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وعنب وفجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملته أيديهم أفلا يشكرون. سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون. وآية لهم الليل نسلخ منه النهار فإذا هم مظلمون. والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم. والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالعرجون القديم. الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون. وآية لهم أنا حملنا ذريتهم في الفلك المشحون وخلقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون. وإن نشأ نغرقهم فلا صريخ لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منا ومتاع إلى حين. وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون. وما تأتيهم من آية من آيات ربهم إلا كانوا عنها معرضين وإذا قيل لهم أنفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا أنطعم من لو يشاء الله أطعمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين ما ينظرون إلا صيحة واحدة تأخذهم وهم يخصمون فلا يستطيعون توصية ولا إلى أهلهم يرجعون ونفخ في الصور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينسلون قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم جميع لدينا محضرون فاليوم لا تظلم نفس شيئا ولا تجزون إلا ما كنتم تعملون إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون هم وأزواجهم في ظلال على الأرائك متكئون لهم فيها فاكهة ولهم ما يدعون سلام قولا من رب رحيم وامتازوا اليوم أيها المجرمون ألم آهد إليكم يا بني آدم ألا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم ولقد أضل منكم جبلا كثيرا أفلم تكونوا تعقلون هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون ولو نشاء لطمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا الصراط فأنى يبصرون ولو نشاء لمسخناهم على مكانتهم فما استطاعوا مضيا ولا يرجعون ومن نؤمره ننكسه في الخلق أفلا يعقلون وما علمناه شعر وما ينبغي له إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين لينذر من كان حيا ويحق القول على الكافرين أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا أنعاما فهم لها مالكون وذللناها لهم فمنها ركوبهم ومنها يأكلون ولهم فيها منافع ومشارب أفلا يشكرون واتخذوا من دون الله آلهة لعلهم ينصرون لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند محضرون فلا يحزنك قولهم إنا نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون أولم ير الإنسان أنا خلقناهم من نطفة فإذا هو خصيم مبين وضرب لنا مثلا ونسي خلقه قال من يحيي العظام وهي رميم قل يحييها الذي أنشاها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم الذي جعل لكم من الشجر الأخضر نارا فإذا أنتم منه توقدون أوليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو الخلاق العليم إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون فسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد سورة المباركة الفاتحة
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم إني أسألك برحمتك التي وسعت كل شيء وبقوتك التي قهرت بها كل شيء، وخضع لها كل شيء، وذل لها كل شيء، وبجبروتك التي غلبت بها كل شيء، وبعزتك التي لا يقوم لها شيء، وبعظمتك التي ملأت كل شيء، وبسلطانك الذي على كل شيء، وبوجهك الباقي بعد فناء كل شيء، وبأسمائك التي ملأت أركان كل شيء، وبعلمك الذي أحاط بكل شيء، وبنور وجهك الذي أضاء له كل شيء. يا نور يا قدوس، يا أول الأولين ويا آخر الآخرين، اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تهتك العصم، اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل النقم، اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تغير النعم، اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تحبس الدعاء، اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تقطع الرجاء، اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل البلاء، اللهم اغفر لي كل ذنب أذنبته وكل خطيئة أخطأتها، اللهم إني أتقرب إليك بذكرك، وأستشفع بك إلى نفسك، وأسألك بجودك أن تدنيني من قربك، وأن توزعني شكرك، وأن تلهمني ذكرك. اللهم إني أسألك سؤال خاضع متذلل خاشع، أن تسامحني وترحمني، وتجعلني بقسمك راضيا قانعا، وفي جميع الأحوال متواضعا. اللهم وأسألك سؤال من اشتدت فاقته، وأنزل بك عند الشدائد حاجته، وعظم فيما عندك رغبته. اللهم عظم سلطانك، وعلى مكانك، وخفي مكرك، وظهر أمرك، وغلب قهرك، وجرت قدرتك، ولا يمكن الفرار من حكومتك. اللهم لا أجد لذنوبي غافرا، ولا لقبائحي ساترا، ولا لشيء من عملي القبيح بالحسن مبدلا غيرك. لا إله إلا أنت، سبحانك وبحمدك. ظلمت نفسي وتجرأت بجهلي، وسكنت إلى قديم ذكرك لي ومنك علي. اللهم مولاي كم من قبيح سترته، وكم من فادح من البلاء أقلته، وكم من عثار وقيته، وكم من مكروه دفعته، وكم من ثناء جميل لست أهلا له نشرته. اللهم عظم بلائي، وأفرط بي سوء حالي، وقصرت بي أعمالي، وقعدت بي أغلالي، وحبسني عن نفعي بعد أملي، وخدعتني الدنيا بغرورها، ونفسي بجنايتها. ومطالي يا سيدي، فأسألك بعزتك ألا يحجب عنك دعائي، سوء عملي وفعالي، ولا تفضحني بخفي ما اطلعت عليه من سري، ولا تعاجلني بالعقوبة على ما عملته في خلواتي من سوء فعلي وإساءتي ودوام تفريطي وجهالتي وكثرة شهواتي وغفلتي. وكن اللهم بعزتك لي في كل الأحوال رؤوفا، وعلي في جميع الأمور عطوفا. إلهي وربي من لي غيرك، أسأله كشف ضري والنظر في أمري. إلهي ومولاي أجريت علي حكما اتبعت فيه هوى نفسي، ولم أحترس فيه من تزيين عدوي، فغرني بما أهوى وأسعده على ذلك القضاء، فتجاوزت بما جرى علي من ذلك بعض حدودك، وخالفت بعض أوامرك، فلك الحمد علي في جميع ذلك، ولا حجة لي فيما جرى علي فيه قضاؤك. وألزمني حكمك وبلاؤك، وقد أتيتك يا إلهي بعد تقصيري وإسرافي على نفسي، معتذرا نادما منكسرا مستقيلا مستغفرا منيبا مقرا مذعنا معترفا، لا أجد مفرا مما كان مني، ولا مفزعا أتوجه إليه في أمري غير قبولك عذري، وإدخالك إياي في سعة رحمتك. اللهم فاقبل عذري، وارحم شدة ضري، وفكني من شد وثاقي. يا رب ارحم ضعف بدني، ورقة جلدي ودقة عظمي. يا من بدأ خلقي وذكري وتربيتي وبري وتغذيتي، هبني لابتداء كرمك وسالف برك بي يا إلهي وسيدي وربي. أتراك معذبي بنارك بعد توحيدك، وبعد من طوى عليه قلبي من معرفتك، ولهج به لساني من ذكرك، واعتقده ضميري من حبك، وبعد الصدق اعترافي ودعائي خاضعا لربوبيتك. هيهات، أنت أكرم من أن تضيع من ربيته، أو تعبد من أدنيته، أو تشرد من آويته، أو تسلم إلى البلاء من كفيته ورحمته. وليت شعري يا سيدي وإلهي ومولاي، أتسلط النار على وجوه خرت لعظمتك ساجدة، وعلى ألسن نطقت بتوحيدك صادقة، وبشكرك مادحة، وعلى قلوب اعترفت بإلهيتك محققة، وعلى ضمائر حوت من العلم بك حتى صارت خاشعة، وعلى جوارح سعت إلى أوطان تعبدك طائعة، وأشارت باستغفارك مذعنة. ما هكذا الظن بك، ولا أخبرنا بفضلك عنك يا كريم. يا ربي وأنت تعلم ضعفي عن قليل من بلاء الدنيا وعقوباتها وما يجري فيها من المكاره على أهلها، على أن ذلك بلاء ومكروه قليل مكثور، يسير بقاؤه قصير مدته، فكيف احتمالي لبلاء الآخرة وجليل وقوع المكاره فيها، وهو بلاء تطول مدته ويدوم مقامه ولا يخفف عن أهله، لأنه لا يكون إلا عن غضبك وانتقامك وسخطك، وهذا ما لا تقوم له السماوات والأرض. يا سيدي فكيف لي وأنا عبدك الضعيف الذليل الحقير المسكين المستكين. يا إلهي وربي وسيدي ومولاي، لأي الأمور إليك أشكو، ولما منها أضج وأبكي، لأليم العذاب وشدته أم لطول البلاء ومدته؟ فلئن صيرتني للعقوبات مع أعدائك وجمعت بيني وبين أهل بلائك وفرقت بيني وبين أحبائك وأوليائك، فهبني يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي وربي. صبرت على عذابك فكيف أصبر على فراقك، وهبني صبرت على حر نارك فكيف أصبر عن النظر إلى كرامتك. أم كيف أسكن في النار ورجائي عفوك، فبعزتك يا سيدي ومولاي أقسم صادقا لئن تركتني ناطقا لأضجن إليك بين أهلها ضجيج الآملين، ولأصرخن إليك صراخ المستصرخين، ولأبكين عليك بكاء الفاقدين، ولأنادينك أين كنت يا ولي المؤمنين، يا غاية آمال العارفين، يا غياث المستغيثين، يا حبيب قلوب الصادقين، ويا إله العالمين. أفتراك سبحانك يا إلهي وبحمدك تسمع فيها صوت عبد مسلم سجن فيها بمخالفته وذاق طعم عذابها بمعصيته وحبس بين أطباقها بجرمه وجريرته، وهو يضج إليك ضجيج مؤمل لرحمتك ويناديك بلسان أهل توحيدك ويتوسل إليك بربوبيتك. يا مولاي فكيف يبقى في العذاب وهو يرجو ما سلف من حلمك؟ أم كيف تؤلمه النار وهو يأمل فضلك ورحمتك؟ أم كيف يحرقه لهيبها وأنت تسمع صوته وترى مكانه؟ أم كيف يشتمل عليه زفيرها وأنت تعلم ضعفه؟ أم كيف يتقلقل بين أطباقها وأنت تعلم صدقه؟ أم كيف تزجره زبانيتها وهو يناديك يا ربه؟ أم كيف يرجو فضلك في عتقه منها فتتركه فيها؟ هيهات ما ذلك الظن بك ولا المعروف من فضلك ولا مشبه لما عاملت به الموحدين من برك وإحسانك، فباليقين أقطع لولا ما حكمت به من تعذيب جاحديك وقضيت به من إخلاد معانديك لجعلت النار كلها بردا وسلاما، وما كان لأحد فيها مقرا ولا مقاما، لكنك تقدست أسماؤك أقسمت أن تملأها من الكافرين من الجنة والناس أجمعين، وأن تخلد فيها المعاندين. وأنت جل ثناؤك قلت مبتدئا وتطولت بالإنعام متكرما، أفمن كان مؤمنا كمن كان فاسقا لا يستوون. إلهي وسيدي فأسألك بالقدرة التي قدرتها وبالقضية التي حتمتها وحكمتها وغلبت من عليه أجريتها أن تهب لي في هذه الليلة وفي هذه الساعة كل جرم أجرمته وكل ذنب أذنبته وكل قبيح أسررته وكل جهل عملته كتمته أو أعلنته أخفيته أو أظهرته وكل سيئة أمرت بإثباتها الكرام الكاتبين الذين وكلتهم بحفظ ما يكون مني وجعلتهم شهودا علي مع جوارحي، وكنت أنت الرقيب علي من ورائهم والشاهد لما خفي عنهم، وبرحمتك أخفيته وبفضلك سترته، وأن توفر حظي من كل خير أنزلته أو إحسان فضلته أو بر نشرته أو رزق بسطته أو ذنب تغفره أو خطأ تستره. يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي ومالك رقي، يا من بيده ناصيتي، يا عليما بضري ومسكنتي، يا خبيرا بفقري وفاقتي، يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، أسألك بحقك وقدسك وأعظم صفاتك وأسمائك أن تجعل أوقاتي من الليل والنهار بذكرك معمورة وبخدمتك موصولة وأعمالي عندك مقبولة، حتى تكون أعمالي وأورادي كلها وردا واحدا وحالي في خدمتك سرمدا. يا سيدي يا من عليه معولي، يا من إليه شكوت أحوالي، يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، قو على خدمتك جوارحي، واشدد على العزيمة جوانحي، وهب لي الجد في خشيتك، والدوام في الاتصال بخدمتك، حتى أسرح إليك في ميادين السابقين، وأسرع إليك في البارزين، واشتاق إلى قربك في المشتاقين، وأدنو منك دنو المخلصين، وأخافك مخافة الموقنين، واجتمع في جوارك مع المؤمنين. اللهم ومن أرادني بسوء فأرده، ومن كادني فكده، واجعلني من أحسن عبيدك نصيبا عندك، وأقربهم منزلة منك، وأخصهم زلفة لديك، فإنه لا ينال ذلك إلا بفضلك. وجد لي بجودك، واعطف علي بمجدك، واحفظني برحمتك، واجعل لساني بذكرك لهجا، وقلبي بحبك متيما، ومن علي بحسن إجابتك، وأقلني عثرتي، واغفر زلتي، فإنك قضيت على عبادك بعبادتك، وأمرتهم بدعائك، وضمنت لهم الإجابة. فإليك يا رب نصبت وجهي، وإليك يا رب مددت يدي، فبعزتك استجب لي دعائي، وبلغني مناي، ولا تقطع من فضلك رجائي، واكفني شر الجن والإنس من أعدائي. يا سريع الرضا، اغفر لمن لا يملك إلا الدعاء. يا سابغ النعم، يا دافع النقم، يا نور المستوحشين في الظلم، يا عالما لا يعلم، صل على محمد وآل محمد، وافعل بي ما أنت أهله، وصلى الله على رسوله والأئمة الميامين من آله وسلم تسليما كثيرا. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
صلوا على النبي اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ہے سلام اس پہ جو کہتی تھی میرے بیر حسین، خاک میں کس نے ملا دی تیری تصویر حسین، ہے سلام. تم تو پردیس میں سر اپنا کٹا کر سوئے، ننگے سر آئی ہے مجھ رے کو یہ ہمشیر حسین، ہے سلام. کیا عبادت کا تمہیں شوق تھا اللہ اللہ، تہے شمشیر بھی جاری رہی تکبیر حسین، ہے سلام. اما زہرا کا جنازہ تو اٹھا تھا شب کو، مجھ کو بلوے میں لیے جاتے ہیں بے پیر حسین، ہے سلام. تیرے لاشے کو کفن بھی نہ ملا میرے اخی، سر پہ چادر بھی نہیں، کیا کروں تدبیر حسین، ہے سلام. تازیانے تیرے بچوں کو لگاتے ہیں لائی، کس گناہ کی یہ ہمیں دیتے ہیں تعزیر حسین، ہے سلام. पूछती तुमको सकी ना के कहाँ है बाबा, क्या करूं उसके में लाने की तदबीर हुसैन है सलाम। तेरे रुतबे की किसी ने नशनाशाई की, ये न समझे के है कुरान की तफसीर हुसैन है सलाम। हश्र तक रोएंगी सब खल्क़ खुदा तेरे लिए, क्या तेरे गम की है अल्लाह रे तासीर हुसैन है सलाम। अल्लाह अर्वाहिल मुमिनीन वल मुमिनात सवाबुल फातिहा।
وعليه وآله حسين مني وأنا من حسين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All praise is due to Him. We constantly glorify Him with this naqis and sinful tongue of ours. He continues and continues to bless us with ni'mat and blessing upon blessing. And one of the most sacred blessings that we have is this institution of Azadari. We are grateful to him to give us yet again an opportunity to understand Imam Hussein's mission, study his mission, grieve over his mission. In the process, purify the hearts and reset our purpose. Understand where we're supposed to be heading. And I am honored to once again be with all of you, and I am honored by the ISIJ of Toronto to give me this opportunity to address all of you, the mu'mineen, during these crucial first 10 to 12 days of Murharram. In my opening lecture tonight, as you are accustomed to me and the way that I speak, I want to address this unique Muharram this year, this COVID-19 Muharram. Speak a little bit about the aql, inshallah, the content for the topic that Brother Akil had mentioned, understanding or a discussion on social justice. Inshallah, we'll begin that content tomorrow. But tonight, what I want to do is, I want to speak a little bit about this unique Muharram. I have been getting a lot of phone calls, a lot of messages in my conversations with various people in my family. It's becoming a challenge now to somehow process this Muharram. And, discussions that I've heard, like what will happen to Azadari, where will we go from here, for example? Are we going to be able to somehow salvage the etiquette and adab that Muharram brings with it? And no doubt, this is a very, very unique time, one that I have personally never faced in my life. 2 years ago, 2018, on this very minbar, on this very first night of Muharram, I was in this beautiful masjid. And in front of me, 2 years ago, this entire masjid that I'm sitting in right now was entirely packed. The faces of the mu'mineen, the faces of the azadarani of Imam Hussein were there, draped in black, eager now to grieve for Imam Hussein. But 2 years later, on the very same minbar, the very same eve of the first of Muharram, I sit in front of you, in front of an empty hall. There's literally not a single soul sitting in front of me. Now, part of me wants to look around like there is people in front of me and maybe perhaps, ask people to move forward or announce some car that needs to be moved from the parking lot. But you're going to end up messaging my wife and saying, make sure that your husband takes his medication before the majlis every night. The reality is that for the next 10, 12 nights, I'll be speaking to you through a camera. And as challenging as it is for me to speak in front of a camera only, I know that it is equally as challenging to sit in your home right now and to listen to a majlis through a device of whatever device you're using. But the point that I want to make in the beginning is that while this is very difficult, and let me make one point here very clear to to me first of all, and all of you who are listening. This is not the norm, obviously. This is not the way that Muharram should be commemorated. Nor do I want discussions, nor should I hear discussions after these Ayam-e-Aza of 2020 that maybe we should begin to think about an online Muharram even post-pandemic. The reality is that the communal aspect of the days of Muharram are essential in propagating the message of Imam Hussein. If we want to do what Imam Hussein left Medina to do, and that was Islah of the Ummah, reform of the Ummah, then that reform inside of our hearts requires us to be part of a social fabric, a social system. Inshallah, in my topic now, we'll look at the idea of collectivism and move away from the idea that we are only an individual. So long as I'm comfortable inside my home, I'm still getting the message, albeit through a different avenue. This is great. I'm comfortable. I'm sitting in the comfort of my home. I don't need to commute, worry about parking, blah, blah, blah. No, I'm comfortable. But let's not get too comfortable, and let's not forget the fact that if we want to make any sort of movement towards Imam Hussein's mission, and that was to once again restore Deen Muhammadi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that asli organic religion that his grandfather, the Holy Prophet, spent 23 years in establishing, that requires the presence of each other. That requires us to belong to a social communal movement. Right? Min ma'diyat ila ma'anawiyat, as they say. That if we want to now journey towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it starts with what? With the material in order for us to reach the immaterial. The journey has to go through the makhluk to get to the khaliq, the creation to get to the creator. Let's not, let's not, allow ourselves the conveniences that will, push this entire movement back. And I don't think anybody out there would rather be home right now than sitting, of course, in this building or whichever building you wish to sit in your respective cities. But the point is that let's not get too comfortable. Let's not attempt to say, this might be the new normal, even when this pandemic and this coronavirus is gone. There is an immense amount of importance laid in the Deen of Islam on the importance of social, communal gatherings. I remember growing up, in this very city, in a very active community in the east of this city. Part of the entire Muharram experience was to put on the black clothes and get in the car with my family and drive to the center and find parking and enter a fully packed masjid and sit with my friends or sit with my father and listen to a majlis and stand up and do the matam and then break some bread and have a cup of tea, do some social building and some community building. All of that was part and parcel of the grief and the gham. And I don't think we understood the beauty of it until this year. Now the silver lining is the fact that we must now take these beautiful masjids and bring them into our homes. Take the azakhanas inside of our masjid that we go and do our ziyarat of, and build the azakhana inside of our home. I remember in Masaib, in my days in Iran, we used to hear the beautiful Farsi Masaib and the Musibat Khuni, and sometimes they would say in Farsi and in English, take your hearts to Karbala, take your hearts to Bain al-Haramain, take your hearts to the Haram of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. This year, we have to bring Karbala into our hearts. Bring Bain al-Haramain into our homes. Bring the Haram of Imam Hussein now into our hearts and our families. So I ask you, if you are a family right now who has those same adab and etiquettes, and you know me, I have spoken about the etiquettes of Muharram for the past few years. I spend this first night of Muharram talking about istiqbal of Muharram, welcoming Muharram, preparing for Muharram, being ready for Muharram, and talking about what the proper etiquette is. From the way you dress to the way you enter, the way you sit, all of that. That doesn't stop, even if you are right now inside of your home. So if that means that an hour before you're about to leave for the majlis in the evening, you're used to going upstairs and ironing your black clothes and putting your black clothes on and getting into the car, let's do the exact same thing this year as well. Let's go upstairs, let's iron our black clothes, put them on, and come downstairs and sit in some common living area and either watch the majlis on the TV or device or whatever the case may be. If you've always been adamant about sitting on the farsh and the carpet during a majlis of Imam Hussein, then make sure that in the comfort of your home, you're not reclining on a lazy boy or lying down on a sofa, or have your feet out, let's say, facing the TV. Let's have the same etiquette of sitting cross-legged in front of the television in the same etiquette and adab. If you're somebody who stands up for matam and makes sure that you or your father or you or your mother or whoever are right now in the first line of matam, then when the noha comes on after me, stand up as a family now, line up as a family now and do matam. If you are adamant that a majlis is not complete without a cup of tea, then make that pot of chai and that pot of tea and sit as a family and serve your tea. And make your 5, 6, 7 family member unit into today's community. That's the silver lining. If that means that before the evening majlis online, you have your own majlis inside of your home. Maybe for the first time now we can begin to train our children on how to read salams and marsiyas in English, in Urdu, Gujarati, Arabic, whatever the case may be. Maybe somebody can say some English poetry, let's say, for example. Maybe instead of waiting for the masjids to drape their walls in black, we drape our homes in black. Such that if somebody was to walk into our home, they would say, "Are you grieving somebody? Did you lose somebody special? You're dressed in black, your walls are in black. There's no sign of entertainment in this home right now." And you'll say, "Yes, we are the Azadaran of Imam Hussein." With the hopes that maybe, just maybe, angels will come for sure. Maybe the mother of Hussein might come and for a moment now take part in our home majlis inside of our home. A lot is different, I understand. And people are having a tough time processing. There are people who have used the word depression, and I'm stressed and I'm anxious. What's going to happen? On the flip side, look at the amount of effort being put in by all the various centers across the globe, really, to ensure that this azadari doesn't stop. The doors are closed, the hearts are open. You've heard all of the statements 1,000 times. The month of Ramadan came and went, and I've mentioned this before. One of my most beautiful experiences that I had in this past month of Ramadan, and I'm somebody who's been traveling for the month of Ramadan for the past decade, was the fact that I was able to do the amal of the nights of Qadr with my family, with my wife beside me, with my children in the same room. She would read a portion of Dua Joshan Kabir, then I would read Joshan Kabir. We would stop and have a little bit of a break and resume the amal. It was beautiful, it was amazing, and something that I have never experienced with my family. So the first point I want to make is that yes, this is a unique Muharram, one that I don't think any of us have ever experienced. But there's a silver lining to everything. And this is our opportunity to send a very clear message to Bi Fatima and to Imam Hussein alayhi salam that your shahadat wasn't done in vain, nor am I dependent on the four walls. And I get it, I'm not naive. The faza, the sama, the environment, you know, the atmosphere of a masjid, of your home center, of your home community, of grieving with your family and friends is extremely important. And it adds to the grief and the gham. Of course, when you cry collectively, tears roll down a little bit easier. I get it. I understand it. And that's precisely why, you know, the Jamaat asked me to come and sit on this member to talk in front of an empty hall. That maybe, just maybe, those of you who are at home, you know, may not feel like it's a completely different Murharram. At least he's on our member, in our center, in our community. It feels like, okay, you know what? People are there, but I just couldn't make it to the program tonight. But this talk about, you know, what's going to happen to Azadari? Nothing's going to happen to Azadari. Azadari has been through so much more, worse than this. It's prevailed. It has strengthened through. It's found its courage through the likes of people like Mutawakkil. Mutawakkil was an evil, cruel leader of the Bani Abbasids. He was obsessed with removing the dhikr of Imam Hussein from society, damaging the haram of Imam Hussein, not once but several times, history says. There's one story that I remember one of my Dars Akhlaq teachers told us, and this was, I think, the Saturday before the beginning of the month of Murharram, okay? And I was reminded, alhamdulillah, I was looking through my old notes of this story, and it was something that I had to share with all of you tonight. He says that there was a moment in Mutawakkil's Khilafat that he made it a mission of his, that as the month of Muharram arrives, I want to make sure that before the first night of Muharram is there, there's no sign of Azadari anywhere in this city. And so he put out notices and he put out threats and he instilled fear in the people and he shut down and he, you know, made a law banning it, etc. All these things that were there. And as the night of the first of Muharram approaches, now this city that usually has black flags and alams and you can see that there's preparation happening, nothing was happening. And the quieter the city got, the happier he became. And on the eve of the first of Muharram, he gets on his horse and he begins to ride in between town, through the city. Complete silence. Not a moment, not even a hint of Azadari anywhere. Celebrating his victory, he makes his ways towards the mountains. He sees that somewhere deep in the mountain, there's a cave. Allah Akbar. He sees there's a very, very small light inside coming from that cave. In the darkness, of course, in the mountains, you can see the smallest of lights. He begins to ride towards that light. And as he gets closer and closer to that cave, he sees that there's only a few people inside that cave, hovered around that light, and they could hear a faint whisper. A faint whisper. And as he gets closer, the whisper becomes louder and more clear to him. And that whisper was, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein. Things are really quiet right now where I am. Eerily quiet where I am. But inside your homes right now, if I was there, I could hear Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein. This is the moment where we present ourselves to Sayyidah Fatima. That we are that nation your father promised, that we, no matter what, under what circumstance, no matter what happens, will never, ever stop grieving for your son. May not be in the most ideal situation, but it will be in a situation where no matter what, we are going to preserve this azadari. It's gone through a lot. From Mutawakkil to Saddam to so many. It's gone through so many. It has now powered through individuals infiltrating this system of azadari for nothing but fame and fortune. Infiltrating this azadari with what? With fabricated traditions to lower the grief and gham and sacrifice that Imam Hussein made on the day of Ashura. This is nothing new to us as Shi'as. Our generation that preceded us, their generation before that, they worked very hard to do what? To preserve this azadari. They were individuals that embraced, and I'm going to use the word embrace themselves as custodians of this azadari, as protectors of this azadari, as preservers of this azadari. This azadari is yours as a generation. Preserve it, protect it, embrace it, grow it, and then give it to the next generation. Majority of us right now listening to me come from an immigrant family who migrated here God knows how long ago, 30, 40 years ago, some families. They didn't have money for a car or for annual trips or for a big home, but one thing they did have money for was to build Husayniyas, rent small little units and convert that into an azakhana. If nothing else, then remove the furniture, lay down the white sheets, call whoever you knew, in my home now, you're here, Ya Hussein. I don't have money to take my family out for dinner every single night, but for the tabarruk of Imam Hussein, I have enough money. That generation of our parents did that, and their parents did the same. Now it's up to us now to take this azadari and be custodians of it, preservers of it, protectors of it, propagators of it. And yes, as much as I would love to be speaking to hundreds of people right now in this beautiful masjid, I'm not. It doesn't mean that the azadari stops. And let's not forget one more point. And I'll use history as a point of reference here. I was talking to my wife today, and she reminded me of this point, and thank God she did. And I told her I would use it in my speech tonight, and so. During the time of the story of Ashab Fil, the people of the elephant, this Abraha who wanted to destroy the Kaaba with an army of elephants. The story is that Abraha, before he attempted this heinous act, entered Mecca and began to steal everyone's goods. He looted them. And so back then, the caretaker and the guardian and the main senior individual inside Mecca was Abdul Muttalib, the grandfather of the Holy Prophet. So they all complained to Abdul Muttalib. They said, he's looting us. What's going on? What's happening? Can you do something? I'm giving you a summary version of the story. I don't have time right now. Abdul Muttalib approaches Abraha, this ruthless ruler, with this calmness that he had, incredible calmness that he had. And he comes to him, and Abraha thought that, he's going to stop me from destroying the Kaaba. Instead, Abdul Muttalib says that can you give me, my camels back and my goods back? They're mine. They're the people of Mecca. You don't need them. You're a king. You have everything. Give them back to me. I'll take them. As he's arranging for them to be given back, Abraha asks him a question. Are you not going to stop me or ask me to not destroy your Kaaba? The response of Abdul Muttalib is beautiful. He says the Kaaba has its own malik and own owner. That owner will protect the Kaaba. Who am I to protect the Kaaba? We are not here in 2020 in this COVID-19 Murharram to somehow, preserve Azadari or give Azadari life. Azadari preserves us. Azadari gives us life. It's our source of identity. It's our source of salvation. It's our source of pride. It doesn't need us. On top of that, don't worry, our Hussein who's in Ghaibat right now, the avenger of the blood of Karbala, as long as he is here in this universe, this Azadari will remain. He is there to protect this system. Above him is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All you and I have to do is ensure that while the atmosphere is a little bit different this year for our Azadari, the ruh and the spirit of Azadari shouldn't leave our hearts. Look, when we drive to the masjid, we don't drive, leaving our hearts here, then picking up our hearts when we get here. No, we bring our heart here, we take our heart back. That same heart now is with you right now, sitting in your living room, sitting in your bedroom, watching me, let's say, on your TV or your devices. That same heart cries for Hussein, whether you sit in front of me or you sit in your living room. But this is a moment for us. This is a moment for us to convert our homes into azakhanas of today. That's the silver lining. To now allow my child to contribute to this azadari by perhaps reciting, du'a tawassul, or two lines of a salam, or some English poetry, whatever the case may be. Usually in a massive community like this, they wouldn't have the courage to be on stage reciting. But now they can write themselves on the list of those people that, you know what, I read some couplets and some poetry about Imam Hussein. The Imams after Karbala would call the best of poets, would ask them to write poetry about my Jad Hussein, my grandfather Hussein. Recite it. They would begin to recite, the entire crowd would begin to cry. The Imam would stop and says, no, not like that. I want you to recite poetry about my Jad Hussein as if his mayyat and body is lying there in front of him, in front of you. Now we have this opportunity to do that. Teaching our children how to recite the eulogies and the latamiyas and the nohas and marsiya salams. Perhaps, discovering the poet inside of them. So yes, my brothers and my sisters, these are trying times, difficult times, unique times, unprecedented, as many of you have said. But Azadari is not going anywhere. There are centers, there are people, there are teams that are using every possible tool of technology today to somehow bring the highest form of Azadari to all of you. Sound and AV and video and transitions and recordings from every corner of the globe. This is our time not to step up. This is what we should do. This is our test as our generation. Our preceding generation had their test. This is our test. To what? To be custodians of this Azadari. Point number 2 I want to make tonight, as a muqaddama, as a preliminary discussion. Inshallah, like I said, my content on social justice will begin tomorrow. But tonight, let's get in the proper mindset. Let's get our hearts ready. It's the first night of Murharram for at least us here in Toronto. I want to share with you a few traditions about the aql, about the intellect, okay? And let me present to you a few of them, and then you'll understand where I'm going with this. At the end, of course, I have a point, and then we'll move towards Masaib. One of the most important books of hadith, the 4 major books of tradition that we have inside of the deen, is Usul al-Kafi, Sheikh Kulayni rahmatullah alayh. His first book that he has in his collection is called Kitab Aql wa Jahl. Okay? It's interesting, I mean, this alone is a point of of contemplation, that he doesn't start his collection of hadiths with Kitab al-Tawheed or Kitab al-Salat or, no. He says it is a book of aql. And then he calls it aql wal jahl. Now one would assume that he's pairing these two as opposites. Usually ilm and jahl are opposites. An alim is not a jahil is not an alim. But here he's not saying that. Simply by naming his kitab aql wa jahl, he's saying an aqil, where the aql is removed from that aqil human being, becomes a jahil, becomes somebody who's ignorant. So the intellect is completely opposed by ignorance. Okay. In that book, he quotes naturally traditions about the aql and the intellect. I just want to share a few with you tonight. You'll get my point in a moment. The first one, for example, he quotes Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad wa ajil faraj. And I ask you where there is a salawat needed, all of you as a family inside the house, we're saying salawat nice and loud together, inshallah, right? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Imam Ali narrates that Jibreel comes to Prophet Adam alayhi salatu wasalam, okay? And says to Adam that, Adam, I'm going to present to you three things. You are to pick one and reject the other two. Okay? He presents to him aql, deen, iffah. Intellect, religion, modesty. And he's asked to do what? Choose one, reject the other two. Adam says to Jibreel, I choose aql. Okay. Jibreel turns to deen and iffah, religion, and modesty, says, you can go now. You haven't been chosen by Adam. Religion and modesty in turn now begin to talk to Jibreel and say, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded us that wherever aql goes, we are to follow aql and intellect. Meaning one cannot be religious without the aql, one cannot be modest without the intellect. That's one hadith, okay? Second hadith is that a man approaches Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, and starts, praising this abid, this worshipper of his inside of his qabila and tribe. That, Ya Rasulullah, this is an amazing worshipper, he's so spiritual. And the Prophet asks him, what is the level of the intellect inside this man's head? He says, I don't know. I can't measure that. And then the Prophet says, no, you should know that the reward that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give this man for all of this worship that you see is in complete and absolute and direct accordance to the aql and the intellect he has inside of him. Okay, that's hadith number 2. Hadith number 3. Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. He says wisdom, hikmah, is the light of knowledge, Okay? All of you remember my ashra from 2 years ago, right? The flashlight and the curtains and God knows what else, all that is there, right? I still get people texting me, there's flashlights on sale, say, do you need a flashlight? Ha ha ha, LOL, hilarious. The hadith says that hikmat, wisdom, is the light of knowledge. So again, let me give the example that I gave 2 years ago. That you're in this dark room, knowledge is in this dark room, you have no idea where it is, you have no clue where knowledge is right now in this room, it's completely pitch dark. How do you find out where knowledge is? You use a light. That light is what? That light is wisdom. Wisdom now shines its light on knowledge. It says, look, there's knowledge right here. Okay? Wisdom is the light of knowledge and the mizan and the scale of taqwa. The mizan, the tarazu, the scale. If you want to measure the level of taqwa you have or I have inside of me, let's check our wisdom. How wise are we? How wise are we? And the third thing he says is that wisdom is the fruits of truth. Truth. We want to be somebody who's ameen, sadiq, somebody who is, the ahle haqq. We have to look at wisdom inside of us. And there are many You know, in Surah Baqarah, of course, in the famous story of during Nabi Musa's time of this golden cow, The very reason why Surah Baqarah is called Surah Baqarah is because of the story of the golden cow inside this surah. And it's a drawn out long story. I don't want to go into details. It's a beautiful story that has an immense amount of lessons. It's enough to know the khulasa, summary of it is that someone has been killed in the Bani Israel tribe. They have no idea who killed him. They ask Musa, can you find out through your Lord who killed this man? Instructions come down from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Find a cow, rub the cow against the mayyat. The mayyat, the dead body comes to life, and he'll tell you himself who killed him. Okay? Quick 5-second trailer for that story. Okay. So now, of course, they ask questions: what kind, female, male, color, size, blah, 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 blah. Anyways, khulasa is that they find the cow. The cow comes and rubs the tail against the mayyit. The dead body comes to life and says, Fulan killed me. This entire waqah, this entire event is narrated inside the Quran, and at the end of this narration, Allah says, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَعْقِلُونَ. So you could be amongst those who are intellectual and wise. Imagine now sitting there, watching this dead body come to life in front of you because of some cow's tail. You're amazed. Like, whatever Lord you believe in, I want to believe in the same Lord. But still there were people who rejected Nabi Musa's path, even after seeing all this. And the verse right after says, ثُمَّ قَصَتْ قُلُوبُكُم مِّن بَعْدِ ذَلِكَ. The reason why you're not able to understand this and it not seep into your intellect is because your hearts have hardened. You become instinctive human beings. Your emotion, your jazba in a negative way, your jazba has veiled your intellect and aql. Why does the Quran talk about this? Ulul albab, ulul albab. Albab are those come from lub. Labib is someone who's aqalmand, as they say in Urdu and Farsi. Labib is somebody who is led by the aql, up and down the Quran. So you could be the ulul albab, men of understanding, people of understanding, humans of understanding. Why? In hadith, in verses, at all times. Why? Because Allah knows that we'll be faced with moments where our emotion is screaming for one thing and our aql needs to come and govern that emotion. We are right now entering emotionally driven and emotionally high emotional days. On one side we have the aza of Imam Hussein, on one side we have this pandemic with all its restrictions. And there are some of us who have annual majalis inside of our home. It's a tradition, Maulana, that has happened since my grandfather in India, Pakistan. And I have to carry forward this tradition this year as well. And I have nothing against anyone having their own personal majlis at home, no problem at all. But I ask you to what? To resort to your wisdom, resort to your aql, resort to your intellect. Don't allow the emotion of Murharram now to veil the intellect. To say, you know what, doesn't matter if Corona is there, I'm gonna pack my home. It has room for 20 people, there's 40 people here. No mask, no sanitizing, nothing. No social distancing, nothing. Why? Don't worry. This is a place where Imam Hussein is being remembered. And I have absolutely nothing wrong with the power of the shafa'at of Imam Hussein. But that power of the shafa'at of Imam Hussein and any of the Ahlul Bayt has to be coupled with the intellect. You can't go outside in minus 40-degree weather wearing shorts and a t-shirt, and you can scream Allah's name, but you're going to get sick, my brother. You're going to get sick. Because we live in a law of causality. So I humbly ask you, I know that our heart wants to scream Hussein and cry for Hussein and beat our chest out of the gham for Imam Hussein. But there is haqqullah and haqqun nas. Let's not forget, if Allah has rights over us, so do people, each other. If you're going to invite anybody inside your home, they have a right to leave your home healthy. They have a right to have all the proper provisions possible. If that means that you need to only invite 10 people inside your home and the rest will be angels, then so be it. But let's not be individuals who turn our aql off in the first night of Muharram and say, it doesn't matter, I'm going to do it the way I want to do it. And you organize matamdaris, and you organize house majalis, and you organize centers that have no restrictions, and all these things, and all in the name of Imam Hussein. And the irony is that we are remembering that Hussein that left Medina to what? To reform and to once again reintroduce the intellectual principles of the deen of his grandfather. He was up against, he went to uprise against a man like Yazid who was instinctive, animalistic freedom. If he wanted A, he got A. If he wanted B, he got B. There was no thought pattern. There was no reason and logic and insight in this man. No, Imam Hussein left that to revive the intellect. How many times did he tell the people on the day of Ashura, listen to your conscience, ask your aql, what are you doing? Bibi Zainab until Zainabiyya, Umar bin Saad, this is the grandson of Rasulullah, trying to awaken that inner kingdom of his. And in the name of that same Hussein, we're going to turn our aql off? No, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. So in my opening discussion, and we want to make sure that we understand that while it's difficult for us to commemorate Muharram this way, the silver lining is that we can convert our homes into Husayniyas and reach another level as a family now on this path of Azadari towards Imam Hussein. Point number 2, nothing's going to happen to Azadari. This is a test for us to see, is our Azadari conditional? Yes, it doesn't feel the same. I get it. But we do our best to create that atmosphere to the best of our ability. Let the protector of Azadari do his job. We're not here to save Azadari, it's here to save us. And finally, please, let's use our aql with our emotion together to commemorate this man properly. When you look at the way that he leaves Medina, I want to speak tonight on the first night of Muharram, on this idea and this notion of this safar of Imam Hussein from the moment that he leaves Medina. 28th of Rajab is a date that a lot of the Indo-Pak communities use as safar Imam Hussein. Sometimes I wonder, and I take it for granted sometimes. Ending of Rajab to the 2nd of Muharram, they were on this journey. Count the days. How many months of a journey was this? Or not for some personal gain, not for something that, that might add to his fortune or fame or government or power. He did it to save everybody else. 28th of Rajab, 4 months, I think, to the 2nd of Muharram, with women, with children, how they pitched up tents, how they stopped and they ate and they slept, and then to again to pack up and to keep moving. These are small things that I know we think about, but I wonder, how much of a difficult journey was it just to arrive in Muharram? When Imam Hussein made his niyat to leave Medina, he first stops at the grave of Rasulullah. This was Medina. This was a city very near and dear to Imam Hussein, his birthplace. Imagine all of you asked to leave your home city and knowing full well that I'll never come back. It's not easy. But the books say the way he went to the Holy Prophet's grave was a man on a mission, a soldier, ready to complete his mission. Nana, I'm leaving Medina now. I'm going towards Kufa to uphold and to reform your nation, to save the deen that you worked so hard to establish. But when he went to his mother's grave, Hussein, to say his goodbyes, it was a completely different situation. He He went stumbling towards Bibi Fatima's grave. The example I always give is that those mothers out there, my mothers out there, when you leave your young ones and you go run errands for a couple of hours, 3-4 hours, the kids always ask, when will mama come home? Can we call mama? Is mama close? Where did mama go? Until that moment where they hear the clanging of the keys and the lock is opening, and they look at the door with these eyes. Is that mama? Is that mama? And then as the mother walks in, the kids run so fast towards the mother. They're falling over. They're getting up. They're falling over. They just want that mother to embrace them. Mama, I missed you. Mama, where were you? Imam Hussein went stumbling towards Bibi Fatima's grave. He collapsed on the grave and said, Mama, I'm leaving Medina now. I just want you to take me into my arms one last time and let me know that everything will be all right. And then the qafila gets ready to leave now, Medina, and everyone now mounts the horses and the camels, and all the everything is ready. And then all of a sudden now a voice is heard amongst the crowd. There's a crowd there now, of course, to say their goodbyes to Imam Hussein and the family. Everyone now begins now to get ready, and the voice can be heard that, please everybody lower your gaze. The daughter of Fatima is about to exit her home. Bibi Zainab comes out of her home there to welcome her. Abbas is on one side, Hussein is on one side, Ali Akbar is there, Ona Muhammad are there, Qasim is there. What a grand entrance. Look how many of your shahzadas and warriors are there, Zainab, to welcome you. Hussein leans forward, gives his hand. Let me now mount you on this beautiful horse. Bibi Zainab now, with the utmost respect, so much dignity now, readies herself for the safar towards Karbala. On the 11th of Murharram, this same Zainab is about to mount a horse, but it's completely different now. Nobody is there. She looks to her left and looks to her right. Sham-e-Ghariban is gone. My heart tells me, I haven't read this, my heart tells me that her heart must have went to Medina. Where is my Ali Akbar? Where are my Qasim and Ona Muhammad? Where is my Hussein? Zainab, this is Karbala. That was Medina. It's a long way from home, Zainab. Zainab mounts herself on the horse and continues her journey towards Kufa and Sham. سيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. We ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to accept this qaleel ibadat, inshallah. We ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to give us that tawfiq now to convert our homes into today's Husayniyas. We ask you, Allah, to weaken the hands of the enemies of humanity, strengthen the oppressed wherever they are, and finally, Allah, we do all of this so we could be the Ali Akbar and the Abbases and the Zainabs for our Hussein who's in Ghaibat right now. Make us worthy of Imam Zaman al-Zuhur and make us with our family stand beside him when he comes. Wassalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Matam Hussein.
Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein. कोई हुसैन सजदा भला अदा तो करे, कोई हुसैन सा सजदा भला अदा तो करे।
کے رشک جس پہ صدا کھا کے کربلا تو کرے کوئی حسین سا سجدہ بھلا ادا تو کرے شہید کون سا گزرا ہے پورے عالم میں شہید کون سا گزرا پورے عالم میں سینہ کی نوک پہ جو ذکر سینہ نوک پہ جو ذکر لا فرات وہ بازو کٹ عباس جیسی جہاں میں عباس جیسی جہاں میں کوئی وفا تو کرے کوئی حسین سا سجدہ بھلا ادا تو کرے علم کے نیچے جو مانگو قبول ہوتی ہے علم کے نیچے جو مانگو قبول ہوتی ہے خلوص دل سے کوئی خلوص دل سے کوئی شخص گر دعا تو کرے کوئی حسین سا سجدہ بھلا ادا تو کرے الفاتحہ
زيارة ورثة بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليك يا رسول الله السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى السلام عليك يا وارث آدم صفوة الله السلام عليك يا وارث نوح النبي الله السلام عليك يا وارث إبراهيم خليل الله السلام عليك يا وارث موسى كليم الله السلام عليك يا وارث عيسى روح الله السلام عليك يا وارث محمد حبيب الله السلام عليك يا وارث أمير المؤمنين عليه السلام ولي الله السلام عليك يا ابن محمد المصطفى السلام عليك يا ابن علي المرتضى السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة الزهراء السلام عليك يا ابن خديجة الكبرى السلام عليك يا ثار الله وابن ثاره والوتر الموتور أشهد أنك قد أقمت الصلاة وآتيت الزكاة وأمرت بالمعروف ونحيت عن المنكر وأطعت الله ورسوله حتى أتاك اليقين فلعن الله أمة قتلتك ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك ولعن الله أمة سمعت بذلك فرضيت به يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله أشهد أنك كنت نورا في الأصلاب الشامخة والأرحام المطهرة لم تنجسك الجاهلية بأنجاسها ولم تلبسك من مظلهمات ثيابها وأشهد أنك من دعائم الدين وأركان المؤمنين وأشهد أنك الإمام البر التقي الرزي الزكي الحادي المهدي وأشهد أن العمة من ولدك كلمة التقوى وأعلام الهدى والأروة الوثقى والحجة على أهل الدنيا وأشهد الله وملائكته وأنبياءه ورسله أني بكم مؤمن وبيا بكم موقن بشرع ديني وخواتيم عملي وقلبي لقلبكم سلم وأمري لأمركم متبع صلوات الله عليكم وعلى أرواحكم وعلى أجسادكم وعلى أجسامكم وعلى شاهدكم وعلى غائبكم وعلى ظاهركم وعلى باطنكم. السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله، السلام عليك يا ابن نبي الله، السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا ابن الحسين الشهيد، السلام عليك أيها الشهيد وابن الشهيد، السلام عليك أيها المظلوم وابن المظلوم. لعن الله أمة قتلتك، ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك، ولعن الله أمة سمعت بذلك فرضيت به. السلام عليكم يا أولياء الله وأحباءه، السلام عليكم يا أصفياء الله ووداءه، السلام عليكم يا أنصار دين الله، السلام عليكم يا أنصار رسول الله، السلام عليكم يا أنصار أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليكم يا أنصار فاطمة سيدتي نساء العالمين، السلام عليكم يا أنصار أبي محمد الحسن بن علي الولي الزكي الناصح، السلام عليكم يا أنصار أبي عبد الله، بأبي أنتم وأمي تبتم وتابت الأرض التي فيها دفنتم وفزتم فوزا عظيما، فيا ليتني كنت معكم فأفوز معكم. السلام عليك يا أبا الفضل عباس بن أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا ابن سيد الوسيين، السلام عليك يا ابن أول القوم إسلاما وأقدمهم إيمانا وأقومهم بدين الله وأحوطهم على الإسلام. أشهد لقد نصحت لله ولرسوله ولأخيك فنعم الأخ المواسي، فلعن الله أمة قتلتك، ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك، ولعن الله أمة استحلت منك المحارم وانتهكت حرمة الإسلام، فنعم الصابر المجاهد المحامي الناصر، والأخ الدافع عن أخيه المجيب إلى طاعة ربه الراغب فيما زهد فيه غيره من الثواب الجزيل والثناء الجميل، وألحقك الله بدرجة آبائك في جنات النعيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا غريب الغرباء السلطان أبا الحسن علي الموسى الرضا، كن شفينا وشافيا والدينا في يوم الجزاء ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا مولانا يا صاحب العصر والزمان، الأمان الأمان الأمان. السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن، السلام عليك يا كعبة الإيمان، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. سورة مباركة الفاتحة.